On tonight's show, we have award-winning filmmaker, musician, and author, Cevin Soling. And now for your host, KoolKard. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kickin' It with KoolKard Show. I am your host, KoolKard. Thank you guys for tuning in. You know where I'm at every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm right here kicking it with someone cool to talk about cool things. And that's what we do on this show. We have great, cool conversations with people who are doing phenomenal things out in the universe. Tonight will be no less than that. It'll actually be more. I have Cevin Soling. He's an award-winning filmmaker. He's a musician. He's an author. He's a Renaissance man. He does a lot of things, and he has great perspectives on a lot of things in life, society, things of that nature. And he has some great books that will kind of like allow you to shift your paradigm, look at things from a different perspective, a different lens. But I'm gonna let him explain more of that, and we're gonna jump into some of his books and things of that nature. But yeah, I'll let him dive into all of that. But stick around. Stick around if you want a different perspective on life. I'm telling you. All right, so without further ado, Cevin Soling, let's kick it. Mr. Soling, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for joining me. I know this is going to be a great conversation. I'm going to talk about your Rumpville Chronicles. Man, I don't even know what to say. I'm ready to hear your perspective. I'm just ready to hear your perspective. That's all I can say. But before we start, I know you said you did see some of my episodes. You see that I like to pray, and you're okay with that. So I want to start off with a prayer, set it off right, and then we'll jump in, all right? Cool. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, we just want to thank you for this time and this place, for this moment, for Cevin just lending us his availability, Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, to come on here and talk about his many gifts, talents, and strengths, Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, and all the things that he's doing out in the universe. Lord Jesus, we just want to thank you for life, love, happiness, positivity, family, love, waking us up this morning, Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus. We just ask and pray that you just carry this conversation. And we just want to give you all the victory, all the glory, all the love, all the praise. In your name we pray. Amen. Yes, indeed. Now, Cevin, I like to humanize the conversation first and foremost because we need to understand who Cevin is, where Cevin came from, so we can understand how you got to where you are and where you're going. You've done a lot. I want to know the backstory. Where did Cevin grow up? All that good stuff. Like, how did you get on the path that you're on? Because you do so many things. So, can you enlighten us a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. That's why I'm here. Yeah, I mean, depends how far back you want to go, but I grew up just out. I was born in New York City and grew up just outside, and I've always had issues with authority, and still do, and within whatever capacity that I had, I wanted to ruffle feathers because it was that was, you know, whatever degree of power I had, whatever degree of control was within that. And I also was wanted to stay out of trouble at the same time too. So it was whatever was permitted. I mean, I would, or where I couldn't get caught, or would, you know, like, you know, I mean, I would, you know, there were people who were just directly confrontational and things didn't go well for them. I was, you know, if I could manipulate one of those people, I would, you know, but I wouldn't be the one. I'd be the one trying to stay out of trouble, but would still do various things that were upsetting. And in the creative front, in artwork, you know, things of that nature, you were permitted to have as a kid, because this, you know, I had a chip on my shoulder as young as I could remember. I did not like my teachers. I mean, I liked them, but I didn't like the unearned power and authority that they had over me. I really had issues with that. And but in the realm of creativity, there was a lot more that was permissible. And so when I was growing up, I guess the very first sort of creative thing that I did that um, was in first grade, first or second grade. The teachers, they were kind of just it wasn't the 60s hippies, but it was descendants of that, and so they still used the language of the 70s and would tell hyperactive kids to mellow out and be mellow.
Mm.
Um, so I envisioned that, well, if they want to be, mellow, then I created this superhero, Mellow Man. And Mellow Man was, the apotheosis of mellow, but you don't want a superhero who's mellow because he would arrive too late to save the day because he was too chill. And so, if they had the woman would be tied to the train tracks and he'd be like, yeah, I'll get there. And, she'd be run over by the train by the time
Right.
that, and so there'd be the gore in my artwork and everything, which would, my parents got called in frequently, and but they weren't drugging kids at that time, fortunately, because not that I needed it, but that's sort of the response that they have now. But it was certainly on the path of doing disturbing and upsetting things that were intentionally meant uh, to undermine and challenge authority in that sort of way. And I've noticed that my sense of humor really hasn't advanced or progressed since then. a lot of the jokes come from the same place, but that's certainly where it a lot came from. And then there were certainly influences that I uncovered in the art world who had similar but much more refined sensibilities. There was a math professor of all things named Tom Lehrer. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he recorded a few albums that were in the late 50s, early 60s that had really questionable taste, but brilliant songs. I mean, he's a great pianist and a lot of character, but and just brilliant rhymes and just real clever. It's worth checking out. There are people who are still fanatical about Tom Lehrer to this day. It's uh,
Say his last name.
Lehrer, Lehrer.
Lehrer. Okay. L.
Yeah.
Or,
So Tom Lehrer. He was in his 90s. He just passed away like a few months ago. He was in his 90s, and
oh, really?
yeah, but his stuff. There was one critic who said of him. He said, "Mr. Lehrer's muse is not fettered by such uh, inhibiting factors as taste," which I thought is. I'd love to have a review like that. I thought it was pretty brilliant. But it's so he became sort of this influence in terms of finding the things that were just really questionable in that realm. James Thurber, writer, is another one who is very influential on me in terms of. I think my books are large are very influenced by. I mean, he was really fascinated by human foibles and would sort of build things around that. He there was one short story. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's like the greatest man, something to that effect. But uh, it was basically a story of Lindbergh, but didn't use his name. And it was basically, he's just done this heroic thing. It wasn't specifically him, but in the short story. And then they discover that he's this horrible person, and he's supposed to meet the press, and all of his, the people surrounding him are trying to figure out what to do, and eventually they decide they have to kill him because they can't have him talk to the media, for them to learn and discover, that this heroic figure. What I tried to do is create these absurd situations and scenarios, but keep the human responses intact, and it's sort of seeing how people, or if they're anthropomorphic anthropomorphized how in animal form or something, how they would respond to these things, to really put our humanity and our limitations thereof on display in the Rumpville Chronicles. So it comes from that. There'll be, one of the I like to consider one of the stories kind of be autobiographical. Having trouble with my words.
No, you're good. So let me
And
ask you this.
oh,
I'll let you finish, but let me ask you this. So you're saying basically you were kind of rebellious because you kind of just had a problem with authority. People who kind of abused it. Was that it? Were people that abused the authority? Was it that or
yeah,
just
I felt everyone who just, even though I was, however age I was, 7, 8, 9, 6, whatever it was, I felt like anyone who assumed that they had authority over me just because they were older, it was something I had deep problems with. It just, if you can, most children don't, just come to accept that and don't
yeah,
really question it. But if you were confronted by someone who just, who you didn't know, a complete stranger, who just, stepped up and started, giving you orders, or correcting your behavior, or speaking down to you, you wouldn't really stand for it, and
yeah.
that was how I felt. I maintained a sense of dignity that my classmates really didn't. They were willing to, to accept a certain degree of humiliation that I wasn't, and but my capacity to resist was limited.
So before you get back to the room, do you feel like, well, not feel, was the arts, because you said you kind of could push it a little bit more in the arts, so that's where kind of like where you found your voice even more, your freedom to really kind of buck the system or lash back out in a legal way, kind of.
Absolutely, that's, you can't, there's, when you're, that young, you're very limited in terms of what you can do, but
Yeah,
in drawing and painting and writing, they give you a great deal of control until they told me, no, you can't do that. Did happen.
but I guess you could kind of stretch it because it's left up to interpretation, and you could say, well, no or yes, right? I mean, I like, I guess for you, you probably had to say, yeah, that's what I meant, but it's still left up to interpretation, so you kind of can step away.
Well, I mean, I got give you an example, I guess. We were asked in one class to do we had cut out paper and paint to do a winter scene, and the winter scene that I did was, it was kids sledding down a mountain, only it was this horrible disaster with, it was kind of like Guernica, with, there were just limbs everywhere, and this one kid who's, walking on to the horror of the situation, just, looking, like Edvard Munch's Scream character,
Yeah.
just seeing, this massacre of bodies and limbs
Oh my
everywhere.
God.
And
So,
yeah, so
so
that was,
the
uh,
authority was kind of disturbed by stuff like that.
I still have that. That one I saved when I started working. The vision I had at that age, I was in third grade. It was going to be a triptych. So that was morning, and then I'd afternoon and night, and I had it all planned out. I started working on the second one, and that was when they stopped me, and they said, "No, you cannot do this anymore."
So was this
But
all a mockery of society, or what? How do you?
it was designed to offend the sensibilities of these people who were controlling me, and who this was how I could act out in ways that was permissible, or wasn't completely permissible, but it was within
They
within
couldn't.
the boundaries of certain boundaries until they
Yeah.
stopped me. But
So let me ask you this, because of where we are now. Let me go back to
no.
something real quick. I'm gonna come back to this, but where we are now in society, one would probably think like, wait, this guy might be on the edge. He might be on the verge of like, you know what I mean? Going and shooting up
Well,
something.
I was never a violent person. I'm still
No,
not a violent.
no, I'm saying how it could be perceived
I'm very
in today's
sensitive
time.
to violence.
How was it perceived back then? Because now today, someone would look at you and be like, I don't know, this kid might be, he's a little off. He might do something. in today's
Yeah,
society.
yeah. It
I
was a
was
different time back then.
Yeah,
It was,
so it wasn't looked upon as like this guy has some mental issues and
no,
like
there weren't school shootings and stuff like that at that
yeah.
time.
Okay.
And if there had been, I would not have. I would have taken a different path. I would have found something different to do. I wouldn't have gone that
Okay.
route. It
Okay.
was safe to do that route because it wasn't. It didn't inspire fear. It wasn't. It wasn't. That wasn't the intent either. It wasn't. It wasn't trying to create a situation where people were worried that I was going to do something, engage in violence. It was more just, um, just being unsettled, settling.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're correct that it's, the context today is wholly different, um, and it wouldn't it wouldn't just fly today, and I wouldn't have, and I would have known better then to try something different.
Okay. So it was all calculated. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, it was completely calculated.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So go. I'm sorry, I cut you off. So you were telling me about the Rumpville series. Go ahead.
yeah. So the Rumpel, so the Rumpelville series. So there was, I would take, very standard things. They've got, Wembley, the Cayuga Forest is one of the books. The Bomb That Followed Me Home is the one that was sort of, semi-autobiographical in that sense. So it's the story of this kid, and it's sort of based on the sense that you have the dog that follows, the kid home from school. In this case, it's a bomb, and then,
Oh my
the
God.
and then the child pleads to the mother, oh, can we, they plays with the bomb, and, pleads to the parent, oh, can we keep it? And, the mother, of course, is, who's going to stand guard over it every day? Who's going to polish it? I don't want to be the one to have to change its fuse, and,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, so it's playing, some crazed anarchist is probably worried sick, wondering where his bomb is, and, so they play off that kind of thing. They're all sort of twisted, but then they sort of play out as far as how, as if this is a normal scenario.
Right.
Tiffany Brittany Brooke was one where, again, it plays with a classic story of, uh, in it, there's a young woman who wants to go to Hollywood to follow her dreams of becoming a prostitute, but she ends up getting sucked into the sleazy world of acting, and, and she's too ashamed to tell her parents that she's acting, and she, lies and tells them that she's,
Oh my.
selling for money and stuff, and but then she ends up becoming so successful that they find out that she is really an actress, and she's, humiliated, and they, take her home, and stuff. But it's, so they've got various, has joined us, various twists like that. But it's, again, it's the human responses are always real, and it's, even if the scenario is sort of different.
Yeah.
Uh, the so that's what they all kind of play on. The
So with this series though, what was your intent? I mean, your thinking is
The intent was sort of to do these sort of postmodern Aesop fables. I've seen various. There've been a few other writers who have done sort of these fairy tales for adults in a way,
mm,
but they're always based on existing fairy tales, and these are actually novel, creative, original stories, which I think sets them apart substantially.
absolutely.
And they all have different themes, but but at the heart of them is the human element of how, how we all are, and how we respond in the, situations, no matter how absurd. And that's always, and even the, what drives, the various people is always sort of petty, and but relatable in that sort of way. Um, it's so it's, there's always something, that I think I think the humor comes from just how not just the absurdity of the situation, but how realistic the responses are. In the story of the Jolly Elf, for instance, it starts out sort of this traditional, typical sort of fairy tale about this jolly elf that loves to sing. But the problem is he loves to sing at 4 in the morning, and he loves to sing, the disco hits, and he keeps all the villagers up all night, and they want to do something about him, but he's magical and can, so they fear him, and uh, so that the mayor has to, bring in some knights to take on this, magical elf, and but he negotiates, for the cable TV rights and stuff, and it, gets to, down that path of those components of the slaying of the elf and the broadcast, licensing fees and things, and um, so it's everything, is grounded by, this the unfortunate realism, even despite its absurdities.
So tell everybody where they can find these, where they can pick these books up, or the series.
Yeah, so the books are available. If you go to kevinsoling.com and you go to Kevin with the C, you can find all sorts of stuff. Books, you can find movies, cartoons I do, um, uh, yeah, photography. But the books are there. The books can also be found on Amazon. If you search Rumpville, they'll be there. If you search my name, you can find it that way. And I don't know if there's samples there. There might be on the Amazon pages, but yeah, that's certainly one place you can find them, and or two places rather, Amazon and if you go to bookstores, they are distributed there. So if they don't have them, you can always ask your bookstore to order them.
Okay. Let's talk about music. So
I,
you are a musician as well. Jackie Chan?
I
You
worked with Jackie Chan.
tell me about tell me about Jackie Chan.
So one of the things that's sort of consistent with so I had this concept where I thought it would be great to see if I could get all these, well, actually it started, okay, it goes back. I got to go wind it back all the way. Um, Eric Clapton had just come out with a remake of his song Layla, and it was just awful. He did this acoustic version of this classic song that's this amazing, amazing rock song, one of the greatest rock song. And what does he do? He strips it down and does this absolutely horrible acoustic uh, abomination. And and I'm just so offended by it. And I was like, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna, drive home how terrible this is. I'm gonna find, one of the most, head banging, songs, and do with my band. I'm gonna do a cover. So I did a tongue in cheek cover of Metal Health by Quiet Riot. Bang Your Head. Do you know that song? It was a
Mm-mm.
big hit. Bang Your Head, Wake the Dead, and I do this acoustic version. I'm starting, I'm working on it. I'm like, damn, this is actually coming out really well. If you can think of like the most, I mean, it's a pop song, but the most metal pop song, a rock song, and that would be this, and I'm putting strings on it, and I'm putting a choir on it, and it's just getting, absolutely, but it's actually sounding good. And so I'm like, maybe I'll take a different route. So I found the lead singer of Quiet Riot, and I asked him if he wanted to sing on it, and he said no because he had just Marilyn Manson had just gotten the band back together again, but to send it to him and he'd give a listen. So I sent it to him, and he was working as a DJ in Las Vegas at the time,
Mm.
and he hears it, and he calls me immediately. He's like, I have to do this. This is just a whole other direction. So I fly out to Vegas. I record him. It comes out great, and it did pretty well on the got some great airplay and stuff, and I was like, this could be kind of interesting doing a whole album like this, where it's not necessarily the same artist doing their own song, but getting artists to do the least likely cover song that you could imagine them doing. So I got so I wanted to anchor it with Don Ho. He did Tiny Bubbles, this Hawaiian crooner. and I wanted him to do Prodigy's Firestarter. And about 3 days before I'm supposed to go out to Honolulu to record him, he calls me and he's just like, I can't do this song. Like, I'll do a song, but I can't do this one because the lyrics were a little edgy. And so I was like, okay, don't worry. So I put together Shock the Monkey. So Dong Ho ends up singing, Shock the Monkey, and then there was this girl that I liked at the time who was really into Ani DeFranco and Jackie Chan. And so to impress her, I was like, I'm going to get the two of them together. And lo and behold, I pulled it off, which was the most insane thing. So I had them sing Unforgettable, the Natalie, Nat King Cole.
Nat King Cole.
So I had them do that kind of cover of Unforgettable, and Ani recorded her part in Buffalo, New York, and I went to Hong Kong and met with Jackie Chan, and it was insane. I didn't think there was a chance because this was like right when he was at his celebrity peak.
Right.
And so we go to so I go to Hong Kong and I go into the recording studio, and I'm waiting there for Jackie to show up, and in walks this guy with a cast on his arm, and he's big guy, and he was Jackie Chan's bodyguard, which is like two questions. One is, why does Jackie Chan need a bodyguard?
Right.
And what use do you have when your arm is in a sling and it's broken, And so then in walks Jackie Chan, and we get to hang out for a little bit before the session to meet and talk, and really nice guy. And he was kind enough to let me take a photo of him where I have him in a headlock, and I kind of noticed that in the photo he's holding my arm in such a way that if he wanted to, he could have, just with a twist of his wrist, he could have taken my arm out of my socket and clubbed me over the head with it several times. But he was made of like granite. It was like if you hit that man, you would hurt your hand. But a really sweet guy, really nice guy.
Hold on, I gotta know, how in the world did you manage to get to Jackie Chan?
I reached out to his manager and I said, hey, this is a project I'm doing, and would he be interested? And I didn't, and I faxed it to him in China, and much I did not think they were going to say yes, but they did. And sometimes it's just you just ask.
Yeah.
You don't know unless you ask. I mean, I asked. There was a bunch of people that I asked and got turned down, which was unfortunate. There was one. So there's a lot of great stuff on the record. It's called When Pigs Fly. I got Devo to do a cover of Crosby, Stills and Nash's Ohio, For Dead in Ohio. Do you know that song?
I don't know these songs.
Crosby, Stills and Nash. Anyway, yeah, it's
if I hear it, probably, but I don't know by name.
Oh, there's a band from North Carolina called the Connells that are sort of this folk rock band, and they covered Insane in the Brain.
I know that. I know that.
You can imagine a folk rock version of Insane in the Membrane, Insane in the Brain.
Can we find this album? Where's this album at?
Yeah, it's When Pigs Fly. You can get it on Amazon. And
okay.
Yeah.
Is it Apple?
Yes. The songs are on everywhere. iTunes. Wherever there's music, you'll find it. Spotify. It's everywhere.
Hold on. I'm going to find it right now. I'm sorry, I have to. I'm gonna go and save it. Yeah, is it? Hold on. Musical cast recording. When Pigs Fly original. Is it a pink album cover?
It's got a pink flying pig on a green background.
On a green background?
Yeah.
When Pigs Fly song. Oh, here we go. Is this it? I don't know if you can see my phone. Hold on. It's white. So
yes.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna add it to my library. Yeah. I'm gonna check you out, man.
Yeah. So I put that together. So that was how I got Jack Tim. But I tried to get Art Garfunkel to do a cover. There was a song by Randy Newman that came out in the late '70s. It was sort of controversial, but it was his biggest hit song called "Short People," and the song, tongue in cheek, makes fun of short people. And I figured if I got Art Garfunkel to do that, then I could get Paul Simon to do a cover of I was thinking Stevie Wonder's "You Haven't Done Nothing," and have kind of this feud on the album. But I got this insane. So I talked to Art Garfunkel's manager, and she said, I'll reach out to Art, and I followed up and I said, I'm sorry, Art's too busy. like, what do you mean Art's too busy? I thought that was the funniest thing. It was like, Art's not too busy. I was like, look, there's a whole huge window. He lives on the Upper West Side. I'll have a limo pick him up, take him to to the recording studio. The tracks will be laid down. He only has to sing for a couple of hours, and I'll have him back home. I'm sorry, he doesn't want to. He's too busy. And I was like, well, if he doesn't want to do it, and he's like, no, it's not that he doesn't want to do it. He's too busy. It's like, okay, whatever. So I was working with the Box Tops. They did that song, "The Letter." It's really huge hit.
Yeah.
So I had the Box Tops do a cover of Blondie, and I didn't produce that one, but the producer was this guy Benji Tang, really sweet guy. And he had been in the band Scandal, "Goodbye to You" and "The Warrior" and stuff. She's married to John McEnroe, the lead singer. Anyway, so he produced it, and he asked, "Oh, what else? Who else you worked with?" And I mentioned, my efforts to get Art Garfunkel. I said, Art's a friend of mine. I'll give Art a call. I'll find out what's going on. So, don't hear anything. Months later, I check my voicemail, and there's a message from Art Garfunkel. And Art's saying, "Oh, I'm, just getting back to calling people. I'm sorry. I took a year off so that I could reread the dictionary."
What?
It wasn't even just reading the dictionary. I was rereading the dictionary. So I was saying, that's why he was too busy, though. It explained it. So that's
crazy.
Story, but
people though.
But I got a lot of interesting. I worked with Herman's Hermits and worked with Peter Noon from Herman's Hermits, and they covered Billy Idol's White Wedding. And I got to play it for Billy Idol. What's that?
You did? You got to play it for Billy Idol?
Billy Idol just had one word to say when he heard it. He said, "Frightening."
That's crazy. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. That's crazy how you got to all of these people, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing a similar project right now. I'm doing a film project where I'm reaching out to a lot of celebrities right now, and I'm just prompting them with one question, and then I'm getting just audio from them and then animating it. And I just ask them, if you could control all the conditions of your death, how would you like to die?
Oh.
And because it's like, it's something no one ever thinks about. It's really a deep, profound question. And everyone just kind of, myself included, you just kind of accept, well, it's something you don't control. You just kind of go. Yeah. But I think it was actually because there was one of the Star Trek movies where Captain Kirk, they kill him off in one of the movies. And it was such an unsatisfying death, and it just kind of bummed me out that they didn't give Kirk a better death. But then I thought about it, I was like, well, what would be a good death? And it was like, well, what, if you control your, if you could control the conditions of your death, how would you like to die? And so it just, it's like I said, it's a weird thing that
responding to you.
Oh, I'm getting a lot of people, who've been, giving me their, the audio and stuff. I mean, from all walks. That's the great thing. So I've got Andy Dick, I got Stormy Daniels, I got Fred Schneider, lead singer of the B-52s. I've got, just a whole bunch of interesting people. And some of them have been, some of them are very serious, and some are, go off and are very funny. So it can go different ways. I noticed generally the older you are, the more serious their responses been. But some are touching and some are hysterical. And then I've been animating.
So you're going to animate this film?
Yeah, it's gonna be a feature-length film, 90 minutes. animation film, and the animation style differs based on each person and their
Yeah.
background and stuff.
Where do you?
So,
On what platforms?
what platforms
Are
for?
you gonna release the film?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see if I can get into theaters. It'd be nice to get some limited release in theaters, but yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I would like to see that. I,
Yeah. It's fun.
uh,
So yeah, so like the Fred Schneider, I've animated in a real big 52s kind of a real new wave kind of animation. Paul McCartney's stepmother is she's in her 90s, and she gave me hers, and hers I'm doing in kind of a yellow submarine style animation. Um, yeah, hers she's very clever. She did she said she wanted to die in a lover's triangle because she figures if at the age of 95 or whatever, if she dies through in a lover's triangle, it means she's doing something right, or something's going has been going right in her life. uh,
that's hilarious. Yeah, I really want to see this film. I want to see the film, man. Like, can you tell Alba to please notify me when you release this?
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, it's coming out great. It's yeah, just because the responses have been so clever, and so it's yeah.
So you've done over like 20 films, right? Some have aired on MTV and that. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's on TV and theaters and yeah, wherever else they are, wherever else movies end up.
Do you have an IMDb so I can go and check some out?
Yeah. I'm on IMDb,
Okay.
uh, and yeah, working. I've got a few films in the works right now. But like I said, my website has trailers to everything,
Okay.
and clips. That, I'm sure there's probably some shorts there that may or may not be on IMDb. I don't know. IMDb is pretty thorough, so I don't know. It's probably everything's probably on IMDb.
Okay.
But if you want to, but IMDb doesn't have the trailers. You can't see that, and you can see that if you go to my website.
Yeah, I got it pulled out, so I'll definitely check it out tonight. I want to check some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been that's been a fun project. It's every time I land someone new, it's exciting and fun.
When do you plan to release it? Do you know that, or you're just kind of going with the flow?
No, I don't know. It's it takes a little time to assemble. There was I got two of the actors. So there was a TV show in the '70s, What's Happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that.
I got Haywood Nelson and what's the other actor, the one who played Raj.
Uh,
They're
you got them
trying
to.
to, but yeah, because their agent, I got in touch with the agent who she represents a whole lot of different stars from TV, and she listed who she had, and I was so excited when I saw that she represented them, because I've just big fan. Yeah, so that's always nice. It's fun to get to work with people that you admire or have appreciated from afar, and suddenly you're working with them. It's a
Yeah.
really great feeling.
How are you getting to? How are you recording them? Their voices.
Oh, they just sent me an MP3. That's easy. Just work off of a file that can be emailed, because it's just audio.
Okay.
Uh, and then the hard part is the animation.
Yeah.
But the animation matches what they're describing as best as I can, and plays
So,
off of it.
so it's gonna be so whatever they're describing, that's what the animation will be. It's not gonna really be
Yeah,
of them. It'll be
yeah.
of the. There's okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, it's them with with the cartoon representation of them.
Okay.
So it's a cartoon representation of them experiencing whatever they're describing, with whatever
Wow.
embellishments that are consistent with.
That is wow. That is creative, man. That
Yeah,
you are so outside the box. I love it. I love it.
yeah. So, I mean, between that and yeah.
Oh, before we go, I want to talk about the war on kids. I want to hear your perspective on that because you're saying something about like um, schools have become modeled after prisons, right? Talk about
Yeah.
that. Talk about that.
I mean, it's always been I always felt schools were essentially prison-like, and they've only gotten worse. And this is goes back to for doing a full circle on stuff. It's kind of turn around that this was sort of the inspiration for my resistance and rebellion and stuff. But But fundamentally, the very first thing, the very first lesson that you learn in public school and compulsory schooling is obedience to authority, and it has to be. It's not that it's arbitrary. It's not that, oh, different schools. No, you can't have a structure like a school unless everyone there listens, sits down, shuts up, and listens to the teacher. It can't function. It can't operate. But the problem is there's all sorts of consequences, unintended consequences. I mean, some would say they're intended. Um, Actually, there's a whole school of thought that they are intended, because the model of school itself was created in Prussia, um, and it was done so after the Prussians had lost to Napoleon, and they determined that the reason they lost was because the soldiers weren't obeying the orders of the commanding officers, and so they understood that they needed to do something to train the youth of Prussia to be obedient to authority. So they constructed this education system, classes, desks in rows, all eyes forward, authority figure in the center, spitting out orders. And so they became institutionalized quite literally and acclimated to this environment where it became the norm to listen to and obey orders. Horace Greeley um, uh, took this model and brought it to the United States in the 1850s. And his vision wasn't obedience to authority. He wanted somehow to promote egalitarianism, was his idealized mission. And he didn't understand what something Marshall McLuhan had put forth, which is that the medium is the message, and that the real message of schools is obedience to authority, and everything else is a triviality. The medium, the construct, the structure of the school, this model of you will take orders, is the ultimate message, and the content of reading, writing, math, all that is secondary to the construct itself.
Right.
So what happens? Well, it's brought to Massachusetts in 1852. And 1852, you can check the census, and you'll see that 97.2% of the population was literate. That level then goes into a steady decline after compulsory schooling is brought in. So schooling wasn't brought in, and nor was it even stated that it was brought in to promote literacy or the basic things. But schooling then was also only 2 days a week, and it went for, I think, 4 hours a day. And despite that it was only, one looks at that today and thinks that that's nothing. Well, no, the people of Massachusetts didn't want their children taken away from them. They stood up. There was a revolt. The National Guard had to be brought in to suppress the parents of kids so that they could have their kids taken away from them and placed in this institution. Um, and things have only gone downhill ever since then. But I'd say that the key to understanding school is certainly that component, and understanding the origins. So schooling is, the other problems with schooling is well, I mean, the second lesson you learn is I will never learn, I will never get to learn anything that I'm interested in. And even if something that you think that you're interested in is taught in the classroom, it will not be taught. It'll be taught in a way that alienates it from you. If you got to study anything that you like, it will be broken down and dissected, where you have to analyze it, discuss it, and come to hate whatever it was that you love, because you'll be assigned things. You'll be how you can think about it will be regulated in the classroom in terms of what discussions are based upon it. If you go to try to do something in the arts, and let's say you have a passion for violin or some musical instrument, and you get to do that musical instrument in music or band, well, you're not going to, if you're interested in improvisation, guess what? That's not going to happen. Interested in composition, that's not going to happen. You're going to be taught this instrument in some specific way that is going to very clearly not be the way that you want to interact with that instrument, and it will no longer have that spark of pleasure that you would otherwise come if you interacted with it in some organic manner and could focus on, with the aid and assistance of someone who can train and teach you, but train and teach you in the things that you want to learn, and respond to the things that you're interested in, introduce you to things you don't know, but at the same time, not push the things that you don't until you're ready or come to wanting to learn those things.
Right.
So yeah, I can keep going on. I guess I don't know if there's time limits and stuff, but yeah, no, I'm very passionate about issues of school. But I think the main point about school that I would like to mention, though, is that when people look at schools and they think, oh, there's a problem with schools, they'll point to one of the various things that are all the wrong things to look at. Either they'll say, oh, it's the curriculum. You're not learning things that are relevant. You're not learning, how to balance a checkbook or apply for a mortgage or things that are truly relevant. Well, that's correct. You don't, and those are useful and very important things to learn. That's secondary again to the construct. People will say, oh, the reason why kids aren't literate is either the kids are lazy, the parents aren't involved, the teachers are poor, the administration isn't supportive. No. It's actually none of those people's fault. Again, it's the fault is anyone who's bought into the construct of the school itself, because the schools are just laboratories of stress. Or factories rather of stress, and when you're stressed out, it leads to neurosis. It leads to anxiety, and all sorts of psychological debility. There's so many studies that show that schools lead to diminished empathy. You care less about others the longer you're in school. Erwin Staub did those studies. Yeah, all the things. If you break down the things, what would you like your child to become after being in an institution? What schools produce is precisely the opposite. They become less curious, less empathetic people. And
why less empathetic?
Why less empathetic?
Mm-hmm.
They become it has to do with. So the study that Erwin Straub did was he placed a child in a classroom, and was where they were set aside to do some specific task all by themselves in this room. In an adjacent room, there was a recording that didn't sound like it was a recording. It sounded like it was live or real. This was how they do a study to make sure it's replicable so they can repeat it. Of a student who is, you hear a thud and you hear someone screaming in pain calling for help. Depending on what grade the student is, the more or less likely they are to get up and try to find help for the student that is clearly injured and no one is providing assistance to. And it's part of it goes back to obedience to authority, as far as the studies that were done by Stanley Milgram, where this was done in the 1950s, where people were told told people they were doing a study on how people learned, whether through aversive treatment. So they would be told to ask someone a question, and if they gave the wrong answer, they gave them an electric shock, and they would the intensity of the shock would increase over the 20 different questions that they got wrong. You gave them a shock, and the 20th one, the shock was so powerful that they were told it would kill the person. And if there was a person with a white lab coat telling them, yeah, go ahead and give the shock, a certain percentage of the people would go all the way up to number 20 because there was this obedience to authority. It was, well, I'm being told to do this by an authority figure, I'm going to do this. And so it's the acclamation to that we surrender our will and our capacity and our good judgment, and that's part of what happens in the school environment. Why we lose our empathy is being acclimated there. And so this task of whatever you've been assigned, the homework, even if you haven't been told to stay in the seat, you understand that you're supposed to do that, and even though there's a person who's crying for help and is clearly harmed, if you the longer you've been in the system, the less likely you are to respond to their to their pain, and that's 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 horrible and unfortunate, and
Yeah,
and that's myself included went through the system, and I tried to be aware of it. I try to be better and do better.
we've all been institutionalized.
Oh,
we, wow. I've never heard it broken down like that though. But yeah, wow, it's a
yeah,
lot. That's a lot.
yeah,
Well, hey, listen, keep bringing light to it. How about that? Keep bringing
yeah,
light to it. Make people think outside the box. Make people look at it through a different lens and understand. You know, you might not be able to beat the system, but at least you know you're in it, right?
yeah. Well, that's why I wrote the Student Resistance Handbook, and the Student Resistance Handbook is designed for kids to learn how to fight back against the system, and you can get that on Amazon too, or KevinSoling.com. But yeah, the StudentResistance.com. It's really about coping skills, because you don't have to do anything that's in the book to fight back, but just knowing that you have it, that you have the capacity to do that, I think helps kids get through their day a little better. Just and then you can cope with stress, because it's just like, I have the capacity. I'm not completely powerless. There are things that I can do. I might never do it, but I can,
Yeah.
and now I can get through the day a little better, and get through school a little better, just knowing that I'm not powerless, and that's the broader point of the book. Again, it's not about blaming people. It's about blaming the construct itself, the institution itself, and the institution can't be reformed. That's the other thing. Is the history of compulsory schooling is the history of reform, and reforms have never worked. And you look at how literacy rates, despite more and more money being thrown more money is being thrown at schooling than ever before, any time in the history.
Yeah.
And I think literacy rates in both in math and English might be at their lowest, but they're certainly, it's certainly near the bottom. So it's not about money, and it's not about reform. It's understanding that you got to do better and come up with new approaches.
Yeah. You can. Oh man, you can tell that literacy is at an all time low.
Yeah.
You just yeah, where we are, anything goes. Anything. Nothing.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate, and it's like, and there's the impulse is always blame people, and it's just like, I blame people for buying into the system, and that's kind of Rumpelville. I think that is sort of about that too. I think Rumpelville is about how um, we repeat, the same dysfunctional things that we just, we can't break out of things, no matter, even when we know that they're wrong and they're not working. We still marry ourselves to them,
Yeah.
and we just got to think outside the box. And I throw out there are approaches for schooling that I think are outside the box, that are already out there in ways. I think, like, the libraries, I think, are a wonderful example of how people can have a mentor, which is what a librarian is. That they can guide them to knowledge, and introduce them to things that they wouldn't otherwise know. Because what does a 7-year-old know in terms of their own experience? They know things that they like, but that can lead them to other things. And a librarian is a great.
That's what I
The
was actually
librarian is
I was
judging.
actually gonna ask you that question, to be honest with you, like that kids can find the truth in these children's books in libraries outside of the construct of the system if they're guided in the right way. So, like you said, the librarian's their mentor to guide them to basically see the light, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and they're not judging them. Librarians aren't judging them. They're just there to help, to introduce them, and to help them find the things that they're looking for. Um,
But with all these tablets and devices and phones, less kids are going to the library.
Yeah. And libraries have gotten really good. There's so many libraries that they've brought in a whole lot of interesting things. It's not just about, they've got all sorts of interesting programs. They're really exciting places right now, many of them. They get speakers in like myself. They get, but they have other activities and things, and they've become really great places. But you're right about about the problems with
Vices.
tablets and distractions and
Yeah.
things that really make
But I know when I was a kid, the library was the place to go. It was something that was just part of my regiment, my weekly regiment with my mother. She'd take me to the library. I'd pick out books. I'd get the Berenstain Bears, and all types of stuff. You know what I mean? Like the librarian would recommend certain books of interest, and it was an experience. It was part of my life, and I liked to go
yeah.
and do it. I would go to the library even in the school and pick out books. It was a thing to do, and nowadays nobody really talks about that. I mean, I take my kids, but you know, you can tell it's not there, man. The people aren't going to the libraries like they used to. They really aren't.
No.
How do
Um,
how can we make that you know what? That's not even a question. I don't know. With all these tablets and now Chat GPT and all that type of stuff, like nobody's seeking knowledge from a book. I'm not gonna say nobody, but a lot of people are not seeking knowledge from a book. It's all digital age stuff and resources.
yeah, I think a lot of I've seen a lot of places where libraries have been working to reclaim being sort of a center of community or having family activities and a lot of engaging programming. So I am I see that where I am. So I think it's pretty good. I just I just think they just need to be supported even more.
Yeah. Yeah. And just figure out how to reach the kids, because the kids are there and they're still inquisitive. You just got to figure out how to reach them.
Well, because I mean, if you're there, like schools provide a social environment. And it's not a healthy social environment. It's an environment. It's a prison rule social environment where with hierarchies and cliques and peer pressure in the worst possible way and bullying. And it has to be that way because the kids are powerless. So the only way that they can express their power is over their peers, and
Right.
that's the same reason why that happens in prison too.
Yeah.
The prisoners are powerless, so they, I mean that, and they're criminals, so there's other things going on there too.
Right.
But there's been studies on this kind of thing as well, where the more autocratic an environment is. They did this with camps. The more bullying takes place within the among the population. Um, so but libraries, don't have that problem, and you can have can be a great place for for healthy socialization. You know, kids
Yeah.
hanging out with one another. So,
So before we get out of here, I got one question for you. Self-analysis. What's one thing that you feel that you could be doing more of or better to get you to where you desire to be?
um,
That could be personal life, that could be professional, whatever.
what can I be doing more of? Sleeping is probably one.
All
Sleep.
right.
Um, I um, I mean, everyone's got to work on themselves in various ways, and I think, yeah, I think it's a great question because I've become so busy and with both my work and my projects and my family that when I was before I was quite this busy, I had a lot more, not just quiet time for myself in the terms of like meditation, but just but there's the distractions, and I think this is part of the problem that goes with tablets and everything and computers and just all the things that just grab for your attention, and it ties in, I think, with your introductory prayer is just the need to work toward and develop a mindset toward transcendence. And I see religion in all of its best as I see different religions, in terms of the aspirations, is that they're movements towards towards transcendence, that you want to reach this moment where you come to realize and appreciate that there is no distinction between yourself and other. That to be all encompassed by the just the sheer humanity of and being a part of it, and feeling everyone a part of that, and and I think it's not about trying to do something. It's about trying to slow down and find those moments. And I think that's why it's important for you to open your show that way. Is it's a reminder of the things that are important beyond the moment, beyond the things that you think the things that you're doing are important, and they are important, but there's something bigger and more transcendent. And it's trying to stay aware of, mindful of, in touch with that transcendent space.
Yeah, what a great way to end the show. I love that. Absolutely, man. I love that. Well, listen, tell everybody where they can find the books again. Promote yourself, promote yourself, promote yourself.
Sure. So KevinSoling.com. I recently registered Cevin Soling with a K, so that it goes directly to forwards automatically to Kevin with a C. So KevinSoling.com is the best place to find, because it's got links to Amazon or whatever else, if Barnes and Noble or wherever else you can find iTunes, Amazon. I think I mentioned Amazon because the movies are there.
You got everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my band is playing in Cambridge next month, April 19th. So I'll plug that too. The Love Kills Theory, worth checking out.
Oh, you're gonna be playing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, you're still gigging out. Okay, I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't have an Instagram, do you? I know you're unplugged there, aren't you?
I'm not on Instagram. I to do social media, it's a job, and it's just like I post very little. I reluctantly post announcements on Facebook when I have an academic article out, when I my records on the charts, movie coming out. So I'll plug an announcement, something going on. But social media, man, it sucks the life out of you.
I
And
know. I was talking to Alba. I said, "Does he have social media?" She was like, "No." And I was like, "Man, I wish I didn't." She was like, "Me too." I only have it because of this and acting. That's it. I promise you. If it wasn't for this, man, you would.
Yeah, no. If anyone should have, I should have social media. I just can't.
No, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what
Yeah.
you're doing. I'll try to stay plugged in on your website and check you out, man. But yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Hey, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thank you.
Conversation. Love your frame of mind, enlightening us. Yeah, love it. Hey, everybody, you know where I'm at every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here, kicking with someone cool like Cevin Soling. Until next time, peace and love. We are out of here. Thank you so much, Kevin. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. God bless you.
Thank you.
Out of here. We're out, y'all. We kicked it.